Bonjour Stella, j'espère que tu vas bien. Ok, on va voir maintenant. We're going to see this question 7. It's a very simple question. There's a simple advice I want to give you in this video. Quand tu te rappelles très bien, quand j'étais venu en congé en juillet, je t'avais donné une vidéo d'une femme qui enseignait la physique chez les francophones. Qu'est-ce qu'elle avait dit dans la vidéo? Elle avait dit dans la vidéo que quand on travaille, pour maîtriser les concepts, pour maîtriser tes chapters, tu dois faire quoi? Tu lis d'abord tout le chapter. You read all the chapter. After reading all the chapter, solve all the exercises that have answers. Solve all the exercises with solutions that you have in your position. Ça veut dire que quoi? Ça veut dire que dès que tu finis de lire ton chapter, va d'abord traiter tous les exercices. Dans ton livre, il y a les exercices corrigés. Dans le textbook que je t'avais envoyé, j'oublie même encore le nom du textbook là. Le nom du textbook là, c'est encore quoi là? Le textbook qui a les soft questions là, qui a la page de couverture bleu là. Attends, je vais te donner le nom. Le nom c'est A-Level Practice Questions Physics, Higher One. Utilise le livre là. Tout est solve là-bas. Ça dit, dès que tu finis de lire un chapter en physics, tu solves les exercices qui sont dans ton livre, comment on appelle le livre là? Ton livre Breakthrough. Solve tous les exemples qui ont été solved là-bas. Ça dit les exercices qui ont les solutions. Solve tout ça. Solve tout ça. Dès que tu finis de solve tous les exercises qui ont les solutions là, va dans le livre le livre de A-Level Practice Questions Physics là, que je t'avais envoyé là, le pamphlet là. Solve tous les questions là. Dès que tu finis de solve les questions là, maintenant ce que tu fais c'est quoi? Tu pars dans ton livre de Breakthrough. Tu choisis, si tu veux, tu choisis 15 questions. Parce qu'il y a souvent les questions après le chapter. Tu choisis 15 questions, 15 à 20 questions. Ou bien toutes les questions qui sont dans le chapter que tu es en train de faire. Si tu solves au minimum 15 questions à 20 questions qui n'ont pas les answers, je te jure que tu n'auras jamais un problème dans n'importe quel chapter. Ça va faire en sorte que ça va développer ton reasoning capacity. Tu vas devenir très forte face à n'importe quel problème. Ça dit même si on te donne un problème qui est compliqué, tu vas pouvoir écrire quelque chose. Donc, utilise la façon de travailler que la femme l'avait dit. You read your chapter. After reading all your chapter, you solve all the examples that have solutions of that chapter. You then go to the textbook I gave you, A-Level Practice Question Physics. You go to that textbook, which has exercises with solutions. Try to do and understand all those exercises. Then you go back into your textbook and solve minimum 15 to 20 questions of your textbook. I assure you that you will be capable of solving any question in any chapter that they will give you in physics. Always do this. It is the same thing you have to do in maths. You read your chapter, you solve all the examples that have been solved in the chapter. You then go to solve extra exercises that have solutions. And then you choose 15 to 20 interesting questions that don't have answers, that you will have to solve. If they are above you, you text me, you write me on WhatsApp and tell me that you tried to do these questions and it was above you. You text me. I will always solve them. They can never be above me. So try to work exactly as that madam said. Try to work. That's the best way of working. Okay, let's dive into the question. They are saying that in figure 8, so sub A, in figure 8 below, figure A below shows a setup used to determine the specific heat capacity of a liquid. So this is the figure. You have a calorimeter, the liquid, you have the insulator, This is the insulator. You have an electric heater, which is inside. You have a stirrer, and these informations on the heater, that is the power of the heater, power supply. Okay, the calorimeter, it is said that the calorimeter has a mass of 200 grams and a specific heat capacity of this. So this calorimeter, this black inside, the calorimeter. Okay, now the first question they are asking you, explain why the liquid is stirred. Explain why. So the question they are asking you is what? Explain why the liquid is stirred during the experiment and why the calorimeter is insulated. That's the first question they are asking you. So it's very simple to answer it. It's very simple. Always use logic. Physics is logic. There's nothing is magic in physics. Physics is logic. These are phenomena that happen in life. So the answer, so the first question, why is the liquid stirred during the experiment? It is very simple. The liquid is stirred to ensure that the temperature of the liquid stays uniform, stays uniform, stays uniform. That is when I'm saying that the temperature stays uniform. Uh, uh, it simply means the temperature change stays the same. That is, in this liquid we have the same temperature inside the liquid, because if we don't stir it, since the heater is placed here, this point can be at a higher temperature than this point, because the particles here are closer to the heat than these particles. So the water here can be hotter than the water here. So the liquid is being stirred. The reason is that the liquid is stirred so as to ensure that the temperature of the liquid stays uniform. This makes the thermometer, reading to represent the whole liquid temperature, so that the capacity calculation, stays valid. So the simple reason why is the liquid is stirred is that the liquid is stirred so as to ensure that its temperature stays uniform throughout the liquid, so that when the thermometer will be reading its temperature, uh, we will have the exact temperature of the whole liquid, since this temperature will help us to calculate the heat capacity of that liquid, or the capacity of that liquid. You understand? So the main reason why the liquid is there, it is to ensure that the liquid's temperature stays uniform throughout the liquid, because the thermometer, so as to ensure that the thermometer reads the exact temperature of the whole liquid, the exact temperature of the whole liquid, since that temperature will be used to calculate its heat capacity. Is that okay? So that's the simple explanation why the liquid is there. Now, why is the calorimeter insulated? The calorimeter, it is very simple. What is the function of an insulator? We are in a heating system. We are in this system. Naturally, the function of the insulator is to prevent heat loss. If heat is added into this system, if there is no insulator, heat will be lost to the surrounding. You remember the assumption we made in the previous exercise. I hope you remember it. So the main reason why the container, the main reason why the calorimeter is insulated is simply because it is to reduce heat loss, because you cannot stop heat loss. It is very impossible. Even if you have the best insulator in life, you cannot stop heat loss. So you instead reduce the quantity of heat loss. You understand? Because there is no perfect system in life. So the main reason why the calorimeter is insulated is simply because it is to reduce heat loss to the surrounding, so that essentially all the electrical energy supply goes into rising the temperature of the liquid and the calorimeter. This improves the accuracy of the specific heat determination. So the reason why the calorimeter is insulated, it is to ensure that heat loss to the surrounding, heat loss to the surrounding, it is to ensure, it is to reduce, pardon, it is to reduce heat loss to the surrounding, so that the heat supply, the electrical energy supplied by the heater goes directly into raising the temperature of the liquid and the calorimeter, since this will help to improve the accuracy of specific heat calculation. That's the simple reason. You understand? So that was all for question sub 1. So we shall move into question sub 2. We shall move into question sub 2. After heating for 180 seconds, the temperature of the liquid increases from what? 20 degrees Celsius to 37 degrees Celsius. If the mass of the liquid in the calorimeter is 280 grams, determine the specific heat capacity of the liquid. They want you to calculate the specific heat capacity of the liquid. So they are asking you to calculate the specific heat capacity of the liquid. So it's very simple. It's very simple. The first thing I will do is that I will take down my data, the data I have, and I'll try to make a small diagram. Ok, j'ai déjà recopié les datas qu'on nous a donné pour l'exercice. Donc, on a eu le mass du calorimeter, mass du liquid, specific capacity of calorimeter, initial temperature, final temperature, heat, the heating time and the voltage supply. Maintenant, il y a une question, il y a un truc dans le exercice parce que au niveau du diagramme, attends, je vais te montrer ce que je suis en train de dire. Au niveau du diagramme, ici, on a dit power supply. Je ne sais pas si le power ici, ça devait plutôt être 12 watts ou bien c'est 12 volts, je ne sais pas. Donc, je vais expliquer clairement le processus. Tu vois un peu loin. Ok, on te dit de calculer, le but ici là c'est quoi? On doit déterminer le specific heat capacity of liquid. Ce que tu dois y comprendre, je vais redessiner le diagramme ici à côté. Donc, on est là comme ça. On a notre liquide qui est là-dedans. Tu vois un peu. Je suppose que ça, c'est le calorimétre. Voici le insulator qui est là dehors comme ça. Ce qui est à l'intérieur ici, là. Donc, la partie ici, c'est notre calorimètre. Voici notre thermomètre qui est à l'intérieur. Voici notre heater qui est là. C'est ça, non? Ok. Maintenant, lorsqu'on allume le electric heater, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Il va commencer à produce heat. Je t'ai dit que heat flows from hotter bodies to cooler bodies, regions of higher concentration to regions of lower concentration. Le heat assis va commencer à produce heat. Tu vois un peu? Lorsqu'on allume le electric heat assis, il y a electric current qui va passer through et ça va commencer à générer le heat. Donc, il y aura le heat qui va être généré. Lorsque le heat assis génère heat, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Comme il est placé dans de l'eau, le heat assis va lose what? Heat to this water. Va lose heat to this water and to the what? To the calorimeter. Ça veut dire que le heat lost by the heater. Donc, since, on va d'abord dire ici quoi? Solution. Since the system is isolated, comma, we assume there is no heat loss. We assume there is no heat loss. This implies, ça implies que quoi? Ça implies que change in heat must be equals to what? A constant. Must be equals to a constant. Which implies heat lost must be equals to what? Heat gained. J'espère que c'est clair. Maintenant, la question que tu dois te poser, who are the guys losing heat and who are the guys gaining heat? C'est le heat qui produce le heat. Donc, ça veut dire que ça sera quoi? Ça implies heat lost by heater. Heat lost by heater must be equals to what? Les qui gain heat? Le water va gain heat et le calorimètre va aussi gain heat. C'est clair, non? Parce que ce sont les deux matières qui se trouvent à l'intérieur. Il y a water et il y a le calorimètre. Donc, le heat gain, on aura heat gained by water plus heat gained by calorimeter. J'espère que c'est clair. Ok. Maintenant, dès qu'on finit d'écrire cela, ça implique que le heat lost by le heater, le heat que le heater lose. Pour calculer le heat là, on va calculer ça comment? Le heat gained by the water. Donc, je vais d'abord écrire le heat lost by le heater. Ça sera égal à quoi? Le heat produced by the heater. C'est ça, non? Parce que le même quantity of heat qui va produire, c'est ça qui va lose. Which will be equals to le heat gained by the water. Ici, le water, on n'a pas dit que le water évaporé. Donc, ça veut dire que, qu'est-ce qui se passe ici là? C'est simplement un change of temperature. Rien n'a été dit que le water évaporé. Parce que regarde même le temperature. Water, lui, va commencer à évaporer à partir de 100 degrés. C'est clair, non? Donc, il n'y a qu'un change in temperature ici. Donc, ici, ça sera le heat gained by water to change temperature from 25 from T initial to T final, from T initial to T final. Donc je vais mettre ici from T initial to T final. C'est clair, non? Maintenant, le heat gain by the calorimeter, le calorimeter, lui, va seulement son temperature va seulement aussi change. Parce qu'on n'a pas dit qu'il va melter, évaporer. Donc, plus le heat gain by calorimeter to change its temperature from T initial to T final. Parce que le initial temperature du système, c'est Ty et le final, c'est Tf. Ok. Maintenant, comment est-ce qu'on calcule le heat produced by the heater? Le heat ici là, je vais même plutôt écrire le heat lost by the heater sera égal au electrical energy produced by au electrical energy. Parce que le heat que le heater, ce qui se passe dans le heater, c'est quoi? Le electrical energy du heater, c'est ça qui est converted into heat energy. Donc, ça veut dire que le heat loss, parce que regarde, ça c'est un electrical equipment. Pour qu'il produise heat energy, il y a d'abord electricity qui passe en lui. Ça veut dire que, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Quel est le energy conversion qui occurs sur des heaters? Son electrical energy est converted into what? Electrical energy. Donc, ça veut dire en fait que le heat loss by le heater provient de quoi? Du electrical energy of the heater. Donc, le heat loss, parce que le energy conversion which occurs in the heater, c'est quoi? Le electrical energy which flows in him is being converted into what? Heat energy. Donc, ça veut dire que le heat loss by le heater, c'est provient de quoi? Du electrical energy of the heater. Tu comprends un peu ce que je suis en train de dire? Maintenant, comment est-ce qu'on calcule l'electrical energy ici? On sait que electrical energy, le formula pour calculer electrical energy, le formula pour calculer, on sait que le formula pour calculer electrical energy, c'est quoi? Je vais d'abord me rappeler d'un truc. Je sais que par, c'est égal à quoi? Electrical energy over time. Ça veut dire que le formula de par, c'est quoi? Le formula de par, c'est energy all over time. Ça veut dire que le electrical energy sera tout simplement égal à quoi? Power times time. C'est clair, non? Ça veut dire que si dans le, si ici c'était plutôt 12 watts, tu allais faire le 12 watts là times le time qu'on t'a donné ici, le time pendant lequel il y a le heating. Tu vois un peu. Mais on a plutôt donné quoi? On a plutôt donné le voltage. Maintenant, il faut savoir, par electrical, donc electrical energy sera égal à electrical power. Voici le formula de power. Power, c'est energy all over time. Ça veut dire que energy, c'est power times time. Ça veut dire que electrical energy will be equals to electrical power times the time. C'est clair, non? Electrical power times the time. Maintenant, en electricity, quel est le formula qu'on t'avait donné pour calculer electrical power? Le formula de electrical power est tout simplement égal à quoi? Electrical power, c'est tout simplement égal à voltage times the current. Le electrical power est égal au voltage times the current. Ça veut dire que le electrical energy will be equals to what? Voltage times the current times the time. Donc, je sais déjà que ici, mon electrical, ici là, je sais que le electrical energy ici will be equals to what? Will be equals to the heat gain by the water to change temperature. Donc, le heat gain by le water plus le heat gain by what? Le calorimètre. Le calorimètre. Donc, je vais donc appliquer les formulas. Ça implie donc que le electrical energy, on a déjà vu ici, ça serait égal à voltage times time times the current times the time, which would be equals to le heat gain by the water to change temperature. Ici, on a un change of temperature. Ça veut dire que qu'est-ce qui sera involved? Ce n'est pas latent heat, c'est specific heat capacity. Donc, on aura ici mass of water times what? The specific heat capacity of water times delta T, change in temperature. C'est clair, non? Plus heat gain by the calorimeter. Heat gain by the calorimeter to change temperature from T initial to T final. Ça, c'est un change in temperature, not a change in state. Donc, ça veut dire que ce qui est involved ici, c'est quoi? C'est specific heat capacity. Donc, on aura mass of calorimeter times what? The specific heat capacity of the calorimeter times delta T of calorimeter. Je vais mettre ça, c'est delta T of water. Donc, ça implie donc quoi? On est en train de calculer quoi ici? Ce qu'on veut calculer, c'est le specific heat capacity de qui? Le specific heat capacity du water. C'est ça qu'on a dit de calculer. Donc, ça implie que quoi? Je vais d'abord make ceci, tout ceci le subject. Donc, je vais mass of water times the specific heat capacity of water times delta T of water, which will be equals to quoi? Voltage times current times the time minus what? Minus the mass of calorimeter times the specific capacity of calorimeter times delta T of calorimeter. Is that okay? On va donc mettre CW de subject. Ça implique que CW will be equals to what? Voltage. Attends, je mets d'abord la ligne. Je draw d'abord mon line. Will be voltage times current times time minus the mass of calorimeter times the specific heat capacity of the calorimeter times delta T of calorimeter. Is that okay? Times delta T. Okay. Times delta T. All over, since it is CW, so we're going to have mass of water times delta T of water. Okay, this is the formula we're supposed to use, where the voltage was given, which is 12 volt. The problem in this exercise, I don't know if you guys were given the current. I don't know if you guys were given the current. I don't know if you guys were given the current. So the t here was equals to 180 seconds. The current was not given. So I don't know if you guys were given the current. The mass of calorimeter, was given, the specific capacity of calorimeter was given. The delta T of calorimeter will be equals to T final in Kelvin minus T initial. This is the T, here is the T final that was given. You convert it in Kelvin, and this is the T initial. You convert also in Kelvin. Now, the delta T of water is also T final minus T initial. You do the same difference, you understand? The mass of water was also given. You see that you can calculate. So, let me explain clearly something here. If I don't know if the current flowing in the system was given. If the current was given, you would just do what? You would do the voltage, this 12 volt of the apparatus that was given, 12 volt times the current times the time, 180 seconds, and you will have the power here. Note that your answer here, what's the SI unit of specific capacity, is joules per kilogram per Kelvin, or joules per kilogram per Kelvin. You understand? So if the current is given, you just substitute it here. If the current is not given, if the current was not given, what you are going to do is that there are two, let me see the question. Let me see back the question. Power supply. There's the power supply. Okay. If no information was given on the current, you are going to assume that what you are going to do is that what you are going to do is that you can assume that the current flowing in the system was maybe 1 ampere. That's an assumption that you can do. You can assume that the current flowing in the system is what? 1 ampere. You understand what I'm saying? So if an information was given on the current, then you substitute it here and calculate. Or you can simply leave your answer like this. Yes, you can leave your answer like this. You understand what I'm saying? Since no information is given about the current, you leave your answer like this. This is where you are supposed to end. You just calculate, because you have this data, you have this and this. You have this also, you have this. So you are going to calculate, what you are going to do is that you leave CW will be equals to what? You just do this voltage times this time. You have a value here. So this, you have a value alpha times what? Current minus, you calculate this value. Let's say that value is beta. You substitute it here all over. You calculate this value. Let's say this value is maybe let's say phi. Let's say it's instead phi. So that's how you are going to leave your answer. You understand? So after, you can do an assumption that, let's assume that the current flowing into the system was 1 ampere, and you calculate the value. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how you were supposed to do this question. You understand? So that's how you are supposed to do this question. So let's move to the next question. Let's move to the next question. The next question, which says the length of the liquid column in the above thermometer is 3 centimeters at 0 degrees Celsius and 36 centimeters at 100 degrees Celsius. What will be the length of the liquid? What will be the length of the liquid? What will be the length of the liquid? What will be the length of the liquid column when the temperature rises to 70 degrees Celsius. So we're going to see how to solve this question. Ok, on va passer au question 7 et sub 3. On nous a dit que à 0 degrés Celsius, le liquid column est at a distance of 3 cm. At 100 degrees Celsius, c'est at a distance of 36 cm. Et at what would be the liquid column length at 70 degrees Celsius? Je continue à te dire, Stella, lis ton livre, utilise bien ton livre de Breakthrough Physics. Pour moi, qui a eu à faire Opacity avant toi, actuellement sur le marché, c'est l'un des livres les plus simples à comprendre. C'est-à-dire, l'auteur a tellement simplifié les choses dans le livre. Et il vous donne l'essentiel pour que vous pouvez solve les questions. Lis ton livre. C'est parce que tu ne lis pas ton livre. Tu passes le temps à rely sur les cours de tes enseignants. Lis ton livre. Lis ton livre. Aie plus confiance même à ton livre qu'à ton enseignant. Parce que ton enseignant en fait, ait plus confiance à ton livre et Internet même que ton enseignant. L'enseignant peut se tromper. Mais ce qui est sûr, c'est que dans le livre, on a vérifié le livre. Avant qu'on publie un livre, on vérifie le contenu. Lis ton livre et le livre va t'apprendre beaucoup de choses. Donc, je suis en train de dire ça parce que l'exercice, si tu avais lu ton chapter sur, comment on appelle ça, quel chapitre même là, Thermal Physics, le premier chapitre de Thermal Physics sur temperature and thermometers, tu allais pouvoir solve la question aussi. Tu allais pouvoir solve ça. Lis ton livre. Le livre de Breakthrough Physics est tellement simplifié. Donc, ici, je vais te rappeler une formule importante, très importante. Je vais te rappeler une formule très importante qui marche pour n'importe quel type de thermomètre. Si tu as un thermomètre a forcément des thermometric properties, tu vois un peu, qui a forcément des thermometric properties, tu vois un peu. Un thermomètre a forcément des thermometric properties, tu vois un peu. Si tu as un thermomètre qui a des thermometric properties, tu vois un peu, il y a certains points dans le thermomètre qu'on appelle le lower fixed point, c'est-à-dire le ice point, le upper fixed point, qu'on appelle le steam point. Tu vois un peu. Donc, quand tu vois U comme ça, là, donc, quand tu vois U comme ça, c'est pour représenter le upper fixed point length. Donc, le XU aussi, c'est le upper fixed point length. Pendant que X0 aussi, c'est le lower fixed point, le lower fixed point length. Tu vois un peu. OK. Bon, je vais plutôt appeler ça XL. XL. Pour représenter lower. Donc, XL ici représente le lower fixed point length. Ça, c'est le upper fixed point length. Ça, c'est le lower fixed point length. Ça, c'est le upper fixed... Non, ça, c'est le lower fixed point temperature. Ça, c'est le upper fixed point temperature. When you have a thermometer, tu vois un peu, if you have values of the thermometric properties of the fixed points of a thermometer, then the temperature at any value of the thermometric properties can be calculated using the formula. Voici, using the formula. Theta must be equals to what? X must be equals to X theta minus X lower fixed point all over X upper fixed point minus X lower fixed points times temperature at upper fixed point minus temperature at lower fixed point plus the temperature at lower fixed point. Voici le formule que tu vas toujours calculer. if I have the values of the thermometric properties of, if I have the values of the thermometric properties or the fixed points of a thermometer, the temperature at any value, the temperature at any value of the thermometric properties can be determined using this formula. J'ai dit ici là que x theta, c'est le length of column at theta. XL, c'est le length of column at lower fixed point. At lower fixed point. Pendant que XU, c'est le length of column at upper fixed point. TU, c'est le temperature at upper fixed point. TL, c'est le temperature at lower fixed point. Les T ici, tout ceci, ça c'est en Kelvin. Ça c'est en Kelvin. Et ça là, c'est les lengths en meters. Ok. Si je dois appliquer le formule-ci, dans le formule-ci, c'est qui qu'on cherche? C'est x theta qu'on est en train de chercher. On est en train de chercher x theta. It is x theta that we are finding. Tu vois un peu ce que je suis en train de dire. Donc, je dois mettre, qu'est-ce que je dois mettre? Je connais T upper fixed point. Voici le T upper fixed point. Ici, là, je vais convertir ça en Kelvin. Voici le T lower fixed point. Voici le X lower fixed point. Voici le X upper fixed point. Donc, je connais ça. Je connais aussi le θ ci. C'est quoi qu'on cherche? On cherche x θ. C'est ça qu'on doit mettre sur le subject. Donc, je vais d'abord mettre ça le subject. Bon, si je pouvais substituer une fois, mais moi, il n'aime pas souvent faire ça. Je vais d'abord mettre ça le subject. Donc, ça implique que ici, je vais d'abord ramener ça comme ça là. Donc, ça implique que j'aurai ici là x θ minus xl all over xu minus xl times tu minus tl must be equals to what? Must be equals to, ça là va revenir comme ça. On aura θ. Il faut noter que le θ si c'est en Kelvin. Tu vois un peu, il faut toujours convertir ça en Kelvin. Θ in Kelvin minus TL. Is that okay? Maintenant, je vais d'abord divide all through by ceci. Ça implique que j'aurai x θ minus xl all over xu minus xl must be equals to what? Must be equals to θ minus TL all over what? Divided by this, divided by tu minus TL. Is that okay? Now, this implies x θ minus xl must be equals to what? All of this will multiply this. So I will have θ minus TL all over tu minus TL times what? Times all of this. You cross multiply. I'm cross multiplying. You understand what I'm saying? So this will cross like this and come and multiply the whole of this. So xu minus what? XL. Now, from there, I can make this x θ the subject. This implies x θ will be equals to what? XL plus what? XL plus θ minus TL all over what? Tu minus TL into what? Times xu minus XL. So this is the formula we are going to use to calculate the length of at theta. So x, we are calculating x at what? 70 degrees Celsius. I'll first convert this 70 degrees Celsius is the same as 70 plus 273 Kelvin. Is that okay? So don't forget to convert in Kelvin. This will be equals to the x lower fixed point was equals to what? X lower fixed point was equals to 3 centimeters. If you are to convert it to meters, you know that 1 meter is equals to 100 centimeters. it implies that 1 centimeter will be equals to what? 1 on 100 meter. That is 10 raised to the minus 2 meter. So if I'm to convert into centimeters, I must multiply by 10 to the minus 2. So this XL will be equals to what? This XL will be equals to, so I'll have 3 times 10 to the minus 2 meters plus what? Plus this theta, don't forget to convert it into Kelvin. So I'm going to substitute it here. I'll have 70 plus 273 Kelvin minus T. What is T lower fixed point? T lower fixed point is 0 Kelvin. T lower fixed point is donc ici là on sait que le T, le temperature at lower fixed point, c'était quoi? 0 degrés Celsius. Donc on convertit en Kelvin, ça va faire 0 plus 273 Kelvin all over. Le temperature at upper fixed point c'était 100, donc on aura 100 plus 273 minus le temperature at lower fixed point, c'est ceci, 0 plus 273, c'est clair, hein? Times, on sait que le length at upper fixed point, c'était quoi? 36 cm. Donc ça va faire, parce qu'il faut convertir ça to meter. C'est clair, non? Ça sera 36 times 10 to the minus 2 minus 3 times 10 to the minus 2. Donc au finish, ça va faire 36 minus 3 all that times 10 to the minus 2 meters. C'est clair? Donc tout ceci sera en Kelvin. Donc dès que tu finis donc de punch ça, tu auras quoi? X at le column length, le length of column at 70 degrees Celsius. Donc, le formula que tu dois retenir, c'est le formula-ci. Theta in Kelvin must be equals to, for any thermometer, theta in Kelvin must be equals to what? The length of column at theta minus the length of column at lower fixed point all over the length of column at upper fixed point minus the length of column at lower fixed point times what? Times the temperature at upper fixed point minus the temperature at lower fixed point plus the temperature at lower fixed point. Tout ceci, ça multiplie ceci. Donc ça, c'est un peu comme si c'était un grand A times un small un small A times un small B. Donc tout ceci times ceci plus Tn. Parce qu'on pouvait aussi compliquer la question, on te donne peut-être tous les autres ici. On te donne peut-être tout ceci. Mais on ne te donne pas le temperature at lower fixed point. On te dit de calculer ça. Donc voici le formula qu'il faut retenir. Très important. J'espère que tu as compris comment on a fait l'exercice. Ok, on va passer au next question maintenant. Le next question dit quoi? Le next question dit ceci. Le next question dit ceci. Donc on a question B. A female runner of mass 60 kg generates thermal energy at a rate of 800. Quand on dit at a rate, rappelle-toi très bien, the rate at which energy is changing. That is, quand on dit rate, ça veut dire change of something with respect to time. Donc, le rate at which le thermal energy is changing with respect to time is 800. Ça veut déjà dire que ça, c'est le par. On sait que par, c'est quoi? C'est change in energy ou bien energy all over time. Donc, change in energy all over change in time. Donc, le rate at which energy is changing with respect to time is what we call par. Donc, ça veut déjà dire que ça, c'est le par qu'on t'a donné. J'espère que tu as compris. A female runner of 60 kg generates a thermal energy at a rate of 800. Assuming that she loses no energy to the surrounding. Okay. She loses no energy to the surrounding. And that her average specific heat capacity of body is this. Calculate the thermal energy generated in 1 minute. What is the thermal energy generated in 1 minute? You have the power. They want you to calculate the energy generated in 1 minute. What is the temperature rise of the body in 1 minute? What is the temperature rise of the body in 1 minute? Tu vois que ça commence à devenir facile. Après ça, on te dit calculate the mass of the sweat. Calculate the mass of the sweat evaporated in 1 minute if the specific heat capacity of vaporization of water is this. Tu vois un peu ce que je suis en train de dire. La question, c'est très facile. Très, très facile. Il faut seulement comprendre. Donc, je vais jot down les data et on va commencer à solve chacune des questions. J'espère que c'est bon. OK. Donc, on va passer au solving. Bon, j'ai déjà collecté les data. This is the data that's been given to us. Bon, je vais un peu symboliser. Voici mon runner ici. Le gars, la personne en train de run. Donc, je dessine un peu comme s'il est en train de run. This is my person, the runner here. This is the person running. Okay. The mass of the runner is 60 kg. The rate at which the runner is generating thermal energy. J'ai dit que the rate at which. Quand on dit rate at which, ça veut dire the rate. Si on dit rate at which thermal energy is generated, it means that the change in energy with time. Ça veut dire qu'on est en train de parler du change du component ici with respect to time. Donc, on parle de quoi? Le change of energy with respect to time, ça sera naturellement quoi? Power. Si on disait the rate at which distance is changing is 20, ça veut tout simplement dire que tu sais que le rate at which distance is changing, ça veut dire que c'est change in distance all over time. Distance divided by time, ça veut dire qu'on te parle seulement de quoi? Velocity. Donc, si on te dit the rate at which distance is changing is 20, ça veut tout simplement dire qu'on est en train de te dire que le speed est égal à quoi? Parce que speed, c'est change in distance over time. Le speed, c'est 20 meters per second. C'est tout ce que tu dois comprendre. Donc, il faut souvent prêter très attention, bien attention. Bon, let's go back to the exercise. Donc, in SOP 1, our aim is to calculate what? Our aim is to calculate the thermal energy generated in 1 minute. Thermal energy qui ont generated in 1 minute. 1 minute. On veut le thermal energy generated in 1 minute. C'est très facile. Est-ce que c'est compliqué? On sait que on nous a donné le par. On a dit que c'est le gaz qui génère quoi? Le thermal energy. On sait que par, c'est quoi? C'est energy. All over what? Time. C'est ça, non? Energy, c'est la même chose. Heat is a form, thermal energy is a form of energy. Ça implique donc que dans notre cas, ça implique que le power sera égal à quoi? Ça sera égal au thermal energy qu'on cherche all over the time. Ça implique donc que quoi? Ça implique que le heat energy generated will be equal to what? The power times the time. Very simple. Et n'oublie pas de convert times. On a dit in 1 minute. On sait que time est égal à quoi? 1 minute, which is equals to what? 60 seconds. Notre part qu'on nous a donné, c'était égal à quoi? 800 watts. C'est clair, non? Donc, tu vas faire ça times ça et tu sais que ton answer doit être quoi? Joules. Very simple. Tu vois que c'est très facile. There's no complication. The next question. Qu'est-ce qu'on nous a dit de calculer? The next question, on nous a dit de calculer quoi? The temperature rise of the body in 1 minute. What will be the temperature rise of the body in 1 minute? Donc, on va calculer le temperature rise. Temperature rise. The temperature rise in 1 minute. C'est clair, non? Ok. On va calculer le temperature rise in 1 minute. Ok. On n'a pas dit le final temperature, on n'a pas dit le initial temperature, on a dit le temperature rise. Donc, c'est delta T qu'on veut calculer. Temperature rise, temperature force. Et rise in temperature, c'est change in temperature. Donc, c'est un change in temperature qu'on te demande de calculer. Maintenant, comment est-ce que tu calcules ça? Je t'ai déjà dit que quand il y a un change in temperature, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? C'est à qui qu'on doit penser? Est-ce que c'est à specific heat capacity ou bien c'est à est-ce que c'est à specific heat capacity qu'on doit penser ou bien est-ce que c'est à latent heat qu'on doit penser? C'est à specific heat capacity qu'on doit penser. Donc, ça veut dire que quoi? Pour calculer le temperature rise, pour calculer le temperature rise, on va utiliser le formule de quoi? De specific heat capacity. On a dit ici là que attends un peu, je vais rentrer ici. Je vais relire d'abord la question. On a dit ici là que assuming that she loses no energy to the surrounding. Ça veut dire quoi? If the person, c'est même pas que if, on va dire ici là, since in the exercise, it is said that, since in the exercise, it is said that no heat is lost to the surrounding, since no heat is lost to the surrounding. Ça veut dire que quoi? Ça veut dire que change in heat must be equal to what? A constant. Ça veut dire que heat lost must be equal to heat gained. C'est ça, non? Maintenant, il faut connaître. Heat lost must be equal to heat gained. Maintenant, il faut connaître qui lost le heat, qui gagne le heat. Le heat loss sera égal à quoi? Le heat loss sera égal au heat generated by the runner. C'est ça, non? Le heat loss sera égal au heat generated by the runner. Par contre, que le heat gain ici là, le heat gain sera égal à quoi? Quand no heat is lost to the surrounding, ça veut dire que le heat que le générateur va, le heat que le runner va générer sera quoi? Sera gained by his body. Tu vois un peu non aussi? Parce que si tu génères le heat et que rien n'est lost to the surrounding, ça veut dire que c'est son body qui va gagner le heat. Donc ça serait égal au heat gained by the body of the runner. J'espère que nous sommes clairs. Maintenant, pour être plus précis, ça implique que quoi? Ça sera le heat generated by the runner in 1 minute will be equals to the heat gained by the runner in 1 minute. J'espère que nous sommes clairs. In 1 minute. Ok. Maintenant, le heat generated by the runner in 1 minute, on avait déjà calculé ça. C'est ça qui a été calculé ici. C'est Q. Donc, ça veut dire que le heat generated by the runner in 1 minute, on sait que c'est Q, which must be equals to le heat gained by the runner in 1 minute. On sait que pendant 1 minute, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Il y a eu un temperature quoi? Il y a eu un temperature rise. Donc, ça veut dire que le heat là doit être égal à quoi? Donc, pour calculer le heat là, on doit utiliser le formula. On doit utiliser le formula qui involve specific heat capacity because there is a temperature change. C'est ça, non? Ça veut dire que le heat gained by the runner, ça serait égal au mass du runner times what? The specific heat capacity times the specific heat capacity of the runner times what? The change in temperature of the runner. C'est clair? Ça implique donc que, tu vois qu'on peut dire, mais le change in temperature of the runner serait égal à quoi? Le heat generated in 1 minute all over the mass of runner times what? The specific heat capacity of the runner. Voilà donc le temperature rise. Tu vas juste apply le value. On avait déjà calculé Q. Voici Q ici là. Voici Q que tu vas calculer ici. On a donné le specific heat capacity of the body of the runner. Voilà ça. Donc, tu vois déjà que tu peux déjà calculer quoi? Le temperature rise. Tu vois que tout est facile. Il faut reason from logic. Tu vois toujours, ça c'est constant. Tu vois la logique que je suis toujours en train d'utiliser ici là. La logique c'est que j'utilise toujours. Change in heat equals to a constant. It implies heat loss must be equals to heat gain. Il faut maintenant que j'identifie les qui sont en train de loss heat. Celui qui loss heat, c'est celui qui génère le heat. Celui qui gagne le heat, c'est celui qui n'était pas en train de générer le heat. Donc, naturellement, le body du runner. J'espère que c'est clair ce que je viens d'expliquer. Donc, on va aller au next question maintenant. Ici, tu as déjà les values, tu calcules seulement. Le change, n'oublie pas que le change in temperature ici là sera en Kelvin. Tu vois un peu, Kelvin. Donc, le next question, sub 3. Sub 3 dit que calculate the mass of sweat evaporated in 1 minute if the specific latent heat of vaporization of water is this. Tu dois déjà comprendre un truc ici là, c'est quoi? On parle de sweat. Sweat is in which form? Sweat is in water form. If the sweat evaporates, ça veut dire que c'est déjà devenu gaseous form. Tu vois qu'on est en train de quitter de liquid form au gaseous form. Ça veut dire que... Donc, j'étais en train de dire ici que tu vois que ici, on a déjà un change of state from water, which is sweat, into what? Vapor, which is a gas, in 1 minute. Tu vois un peu. Remarque aussi, on nous a dit ici là que the runner in part C, je suis sûr qu'on parlait sûrement de part sub 3, in part C loses energy at a rate of 500 watts by this process. Tu vois un peu. On dit cela d'abord, in practice, it is desirable for a runner to maintain a constant temperature. This may be achieved partly by the evaporation of the sweat. Tu as compris, non? In practice, it is desirable that a runner maintains a constant temperature. This may be donc, pour qu'un runner maintienne a constant temperature, il faudrait que, pour achieve a constant temperature, il faudrait que son sweat évaporate. Si son sweat n'évaporate pas, il ne pourra pas maintenir a constant temperature. Et the runner in part 3 loses energy at a rate of 500 watts by this process. Donc, ça veut dire que pour maintenir une constante température, il faut que le sweat que tu as, c'est-à-dire quand tu cours, tu es en train de transpirer, il faut que le sweat là s'évapore. Et le rate at which you lose energy quand le sweat évaporate, c'est de 500 watts. Tu vois un peu ce que je suis en train de dire. Ok. On te dit donc ici, calculate the mass of the sweat evaporated. Tu vas dire que, en quelque sorte, la partie ci est un peu reliée avec ça. Calculate the sweat of the mass of the sweat evaporated in 1 minute if the specific heat capacity of water is this. La question ci est très facile. Je vais d'abord prendre les data sub 3. On nous a donné, je vais prendre les data qu'on nous a donné. On nous a donné le specific heat, le latent heat of vaporization of water qui est 2.3 times 10 to the 6 joules per kilogramme. Donc, on a le... Ici, là, on doit calculer quoi? On doit calculer le mass. On doit calculer le mass of sweat evaporated. The mass of sweat evaporated in 1 minute. Mass of sweat evaporated in 1 minute. Mass of sweat evaporated in 1 minute. Donc, je vais appeler le mass là, mass of sweat. Ok. qu'est-ce qu'on nous a donné comme information? On a le latent, un peu, on nous a donné le specific latent heat of vaporization. Donc, specific latent heat of vaporization of water, of sweat. Si il a dit, un peu, je vois ce qu'ils ont dit. Specific latent heat of vaporization of water. Okay, the said water of water was equals to 2.3 times 10 to the 6 joule per kilogram. Okay, now how are we going to calculate this mass of sweat? We know that the sweat evaporated, so the sweat is leaving from what? The liquid state to the what? To the gaseous state. Whenever you are leaving from the liquid state to the gaseous state, the substance first leaves the liquid to the gas state at the same temperature, and then at the gas state, it will then change what? It will then do what? It will change temperature from theta 1 to theta 2. But here, nothing was mentioned about the change in temperature. You understand what is going on? Okay. So our aim is to calculate the mass of this sweat. We know that the sweat is changing state. So naturally, the heat. So naturally, the heat produced during the evaporation of sweat, if I call that heat Q, that, let's say Q heat, to mean, no, let's say Q E. The capital E represents evaporation. That heat must be equals to what? If we are changing state, that if I'm to calculate, if I'm changing the heat produced during the evaporation of the state, since we are talking of evaporation, it means a change of state. That heat must be equals to what? The mass of what? Must be equals to the mass of the sweat times what? The latent heat of vaporization. It's a change of state. Is that okay? Now, this implies the mass of the sweat will be equals to what? The heat produced during the evaporation of the state over the latent heat of vaporization. So now, our question is, how do we calculate this heat produced during evaporation? In the previous question, remember something. That's why you should always read Kinley questions. In the previous question, it was said that in practice, it is desirable for a runner to maintain a constant temperature. And in the exercise here, it was said that no heat is lost to the surrounding. So, if no heat is lost to the surrounding, it means that the temperature of the what? Of the runner is kept constant. So, if the temperature of the runner is kept constant, they are saying that to achieve that constant temperature, this can be achieved partly by the evaporation of the sweat. And here in this exercise, they are already saying that the sweat has evaporated. And they are adding an extra information here, which says that the runner in part, I'm sure is part 3, loses energy at a rate of this. So for the temperature to be kept constant, the runner must lose energy at this rate. And I told you, this is a rate. So this is power. And they are asking you to calculate the mass within 1 minute. You have the power and you have the time during which the process is taking place. To calculate that energy, we know that power is what? Energy all over time. To calculate that, it means that energy will be equals to what? Power times time. So since we have this power, since the temperature is kept constant, it means that the rate at which the runner is losing energy. So let me write down the things for you to understand. what I will do here, so calculating cure E. Okay, since in the exercise no heat is lost to the surrounding, comma, it implies that what? It implies temperature of runner is kept constant. Since no heat is lost to the surrounding, it implies temperature of runner is kept constant. Since the temperature of runner is kept constant. Since the temperature is kept constant and the sweat of the runner is evaporating. It implies the rate at which sweat turns into vapor. The sweat turns into vapor. The rate at which sweat turns into vapor, that is P, that is the power, will be equals to what? 500 watts. I hope you understand the analysis I just made. So we know already the power. That means we can calculate cure E. Is that okay? We know that power, recall that power equals to what? Energy all over time. This implies, so the power here, the energy here, will be energy over energy, let's call it capital E, and here time. This implies energy will be equal to what? Power times time. So this is the energy we want to calculate. So if we apply it to our cure E, it implies cure E will be equals to power times time. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is our cure E, where this power equals to what? 500 watts, and this time is equals to what? The process is taking place within what? Within 1 minute. That's what was said. Within 1 minute. So this time is equals to what? 1 minute, which is equals to what? 60 seconds. So you calculate this cure E. After calculating this cure E, you come and substitute it here, and you will have the mass of the sweat. So that was all for this question. I hope everything was clear. So you see that, don't be afraid of these questions. They are very simple questions. Read, use the approach that this woman, this physics teacher, that woman told you. Read your textbook. Solve all the examples that have corrections in your textbook. Then go into your pamphlet, which has questions and answers. Solve all the questions. Then you go back into your textbook and choose 15 or 20 strategic questions that you solve. Let me tell you that if you do that, no exercise in physics will be above you. Even if the exercise is complicated, how you will write something. So that was all for this very simple question. So see you in next videos where I'll be explaining more concepts. So see you later.